So, what is this video about? It's an interpretation of how I envision the final season of Game of Thrones. So, I recommend viewing this video as an audiobook with illustrations. Imagine that you've just finished watching the 7th season and are starting the 8th, and engage your imagination. The visuals were created to help you picture how it could have looked on the big screen. So, without further ado, I guess enjoy the watching. The attention of the entire kingdom was focused on the north. The call that the army of the dead, led by the legendary creatures known as the Others, or White Walkers, had spread not only across Westeros, but also Essos. Initially, many doubted the truth of these words, considering it a ploy by the king in the north and Queen Daenerys Targaryen. However, as the Night King approached the wall, the days grew shorter and shorter. Everyone anticipated the arrival of winter, but this time it was unlike any other. The winds strengthened, snow fell more frequently, and even the Northmen and wildlings, accustomed to the cold, shivered under the icy breath of the wind. Winterfell became a gathering place for all volunteers who could wield a sword, spear, or bow. The situation was complicated by Queen Cersei, who had divided the country in two. Storm's End, after the deaths of Stannis and Renly Baratheon and Cersei Lannister's ascension to the Iron Throne, was given to one of the Queen's loyalists. The Reach had been ravaged by Jaime Lannister on the Queen's orders, and most of its nobility joined the Crown Lands. Dorne could not send its forces by land, and the sea routes were blocked by Euron Greyjoy's fleet. Nonetheless, as the rumors of the dead became more credible, some broke their oaths to the Queen and headed to the Neck to join the united forces in the north. Jaime Lannister also decided to head north, disillusioned by his sister's short-sightedness and increasing madness. Using his position, he addressed the Lannister troops, urging them to join him at Winterfell, appealing to the need to set aside old rivalries and unite against the common enemy. His expectations were met, and part of the Lannister army joined their commander. Before the Queen could react, his contingent was already on the King's Road, heading to Winterfell. In the north, events were moving swiftly. Some of the northern forces occupied the empty castles on the wall. They were supported by the remnants of the Night's Watch and the wildlings. The wall was a formidable fortification, and they planned to confront the army of the dead here. Troops slowly moved from Winterfell to the north. Jon flew Rhaegal along the wall every day, trying to see where the main attack would come. In the third week of preparations, Jon discovered 3 armies of the dead heading to different sections: the Shadow Tower, Castle Black, and Eastwatch by the Sea. The garrison at the Shadow Tower was the smallest, so Daenerys, on Drogon and with part of the army, headed west, while Jon, on Rhaegal, went to Castle Black, where the largest horde of the dead, along with giants and dead mammoths, was advancing. Jon had faced the others at Hardhome and did not underestimate the enemy. Castle Black had become his home. He had defended it against Mance Rayder's army and intended to do so again, albeit against a different foe. But the Night King was cunning. As if knowing Jon and anticipating his reactions, he predicted their actions. When the assault on the wall began, and it seemed the main attack was on Castle Black, the Night King, riding the undead Viserion, struck the defenses at Eastwatch by the Sea. The sound of ice breaking from Viserion's magical flames could be heard for miles. Daenerys and Jon realized the Night King's plan, to stretch their forces and strike where their dragons were not. Both riders quickly flew east, but it was too late. The wall had been breached. Upon arrival, they furiously unleashed their dragons, but the Night King's flying skills were on par with Daenerys's. The white cold, the weather that accompanied the others with heavy snow, icy rain, and strong winds, allowed the Night King to fight against 2 dragon riders. After a brief but fierce skirmish, the Night King, as if tired, landed near the White Walkers. Jon and Daenerys followed, intending to burn them all to ashes, but saw that they were already prepared with ice spears. Having no choice but to retreat, they turned their dragons and flew back to Winterfell. Thus, the Night King dealt the first blow to the living, breaching the main defense of the living world and invading Westeros. While Jon and Daenerys were at the wall, one of the new arrivals at Winterfell was Samwell Tarly. Though not a great fighter, the books he brought from the Citadel might hold the key to how the White Walkers were stopped during the long night in the past. Some masters from the Citadel had noticed that this winter was unique and were also seeking useful information, sending it by ravens. Sansa Stark, ruling Winterfell in Jon's absence, provided a space in the castle library for Sam, Tyrion, and those skilled in reading, ensuring they were not disturbed. Bran Stark, with the gift of the three-eyed raven, spent his time in the Godswood, delving deeper into past events, trying to find answers and understand the Night King's goal. Sam hoped that with Bran's help, they could find the answers, but Tyrion noted that the more Bran delved into the past, the more detached he seemed to become. Another notable arrival at Winterfell, along with Jon and Daenerys, was Jaime Lannister. The rumor that the wall had been breached and the dead were now on this side spread along the King's Road, but still, many viewed the arriving contingent with suspicion and distrust. However, Sansa Stark, not without lessons from Petyr Baelish, had learned to view things without prejudice. She proposed Jaime Lannister to lead Winterfell's defense. Of all present, he had the most experience and had commanded an army of this size. Hearing this, echoes of discontent reverberated through the castle halls, but Sansa reminded them that all feuds needed to be set aside. The wall had fallen, and they needed to do everything possible to ensure Winterfell did not meet the same fate. Jaime wasted no time and began inspecting the defensive structures, but was dissatisfied with them. Together with Jon Royce, Grey Worm, and Jorah Mormont, they set to work. Upon their return, Jon and Daenerys recounted in detail what they had encountered over the past weeks. They also reported the details of the skirmish at Eastwatch against the Night King. An important piece of news was that they had noticed the army of the dead had not advanced south, but decided to clean up the remaining human strongholds along the wall. Jon and Daenerys said that those left in the fortifications on the wall could no longer be helped, and they needed to use this time wisely. Seeing that Sansa was managing the castle and people well, Jon decided to dedicate the remaining time to dragon riding training under Daenerys' guidance. On the 9th day after the wall fell, a small group led by Edison Tollett, Tormund, and Beric Dondarrion arrived at the castle. They brought the sad news that Castle Black had fallen to a two-sided attack, and the main force of the dead would soon move south. Hearing this, Jon ordered all non-combatants to head south to the Twins and River Run. That evening, in the castle's main tower, the heroes spread out a map and discussed their battle plan. Everyone stood silently around the table, glancing at each other. Jorah Mormont asked the first important question. Why were they so sure the Night King would assault Winterfell? He could bypass them and move further south or surround them, as his army of tens of thousands of dead could eventually starve or freeze them out. Samwell Tarly answered, saying the Night King was after Bran. The more time Bran had, the more chances he had to find a way to stop the White Walkers using his three-eyed raven powers. Therefore, the Night King would hurry, as time was also against him. Varys proposed a sensible suggestion to take Bran south. But, unexpectedly, Bran spoke from the shadows, saying that for his gift to work, he needed the weirwood tree in the Godswood. Without it, he couldn't delve far enough into the past, and added that he needed just a bit more time. Tyrion looked at his brother and Jon Royce, asking how they would act. Jaime began tracing his finger along the map, explaining his plan. He started by stating that they couldn't win in an open battle, but they didn't need to. All they had to do was destroy the Night King, to whom the dead were bound. Therefore, they created 3 lines of fortifications with a deep trench. The first line would be manned by Stark and Lannister troops and part of the Knights of the Vale. This would be the hardest hit. Slowing down the dead's horde, the troops would fall back to the second line, held by their best infantry, the Unsullied. They would be covered from the walls by archers armed with dragonglass-tipped arrows. The Dothraki would be divided into 3 groups, 2 on the flanks and 1 in reserve. Their task was to attack the army of the dead with dragonglass arrows from a distance, drawing part of the dead away from the main assault. After each maneuver and resupplying their arrows, they would repeat the attack. The wildlings, who were too few after the Battle of the Bastards and the battle at the Wall against the Night King, would guard the armory and additional horses. If the first wave of the dead got bogged down in battles, the White Walkers would be forced to send a second wave. At this point, a small contingent hidden in the forest would come into play. The walkers always stayed behind the horde. When most were assaulting the castle, the remaining Knights of the Vale and the Night's Watch, led by their best fighters on horseback, would strike the walkers. They knew that each walker controlled a group of the dead. Killing them would ease the castle's defense by reducing the white numbers. Most importantly, engaging the White Walkers in battle would force the Night King, who usually stayed away from the fray, to enter the fight. Daenerys, who had been silent until now, suddenly said, "And then Jon and I will finish what we started. We'll deal with his dragon first, and when he lands, we'll use dragon fire, Valyrian steel, and dragon glass. Something will work." Everyone agreed it was the best plan they could devise. Past mistakes were considered, and feeling encouraged, the commanders dispersed. Sansa, Tyrion, Varys, Sam, and those not fighting said their farewells and headed south to the Twins. The troops received their orders and took up their positions. Torches were lit on the walls, sentries took their posts. Everyone prepared for the battle, understanding that the White Walkers had to be stopped at Winterfell. Meanwhile, unnoticed by Winterfell's defenders, thin, pale figures of riders appeared on the horizon atop the hill.